You're listening to Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast.
When your heart is aching and your world is shaking, don't give up. No, no, don't give up.
Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope, the podcast. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today we're here with our cover girl, Danielle Marggraf. Danielle is an expert on mindset, manifesting, and wealth consciousness, a somatic healer. She has had the privilege of working with people all over the world to heal from survival and stress and step into wealth and success and financial freedom through healing subconscious patterns in their nervous and energy system. She is the author of it will be out when this goes out, Sacred Shit, How to Embrace Your Messy Humanity and Tap into the Limitless Power of Your Soul, which will be out spring. We're here. By the time this is released, you guys can go grab that book. And she is a sought after speaker. I love her. She's a single mom of two amazing beings, a book addict, and a fairy Aries. Ooh, you have a birthday. You can find her at the beach, paddleboarding, or in your local bookstores. By the way, I'm so sad because I feel like bookstores are just going away and I miss them. I love the smell of them. I used to hide in them. Like they're my thing. But welcome, Danielle.
Oh, thank you so much.
Sorry, I got a little tongue-tied in there, but literally it's my sixth podcast. I forget even who I am. But I'm so glad you're here today.
Thank you.
We're doing a 4-part series with Danielle because she's that awesome. Like I needed more of her. So we've tried to break down a little bit about her amazingness into a 4-part series. And that series basically is about sacred shit and mastering it, right? And the first part of this series is all on wound and healing. And she's phenomenal at this. Why do you think we searched her out, right? She's incredible. So Danielle, tell us a little bit about Sacred Shit and the little story behind it.
So Sacred Shit was really born of the idea that we all as humans have this messy experience, right? And that when we're kind of, I think, growing up, we have this idea of what life should be, is supposed to be. And a lot of us go into this space of kind of what's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong? Why am I not getting it right? How am I messing this up? Right? Like there's all this kind of weird, crazy talk around why we're not where we think we should be, or we're not, stepping into this person that we think we should be. And that we all have wounds, pain, some sort of trauma that has occurred, maybe not just once, but multiple times throughout our life. And so the idea that, yes, that happens, and we need to kind of work through as a human, right, in the messiness of our world, and that I truly believe we are spiritual beings living a human existence, right? I believe that our bodies are kind of the rental car of our life, and that we are not our name, we are not our body, right? And so when we are tapped in and tuned on into this limitless part of us, how do we use that to really guide us and help shape and create our life? And so I decided to write a book on how that process kind of looks and how it shows up and how anyone, despite your circumstances, can do this work.
I love it because we do have messy lives and that's okay, right? That's part of the beautiful journey. I love my mess. I embrace my mess now, even though I may have not been so embracive when it was happening. But looking back, it turns out that it was exactly what I was supposed to be, like what was supposed to be happening.
Exactly. Yes. There's magic in the mess.
There's so much magic in the mess. Like seriously, I tell this all the time. How many of you have cried over your first love, right? And you're going to just die without them. They're like, you can't move on without them. And then somewhere down in life, you meet Mr. Right. And you're like, oh, what if I was with that first person I thought I would die without? The door would never have opened to this. So all that mess is for a reason.
So true.
So I want to talk about the wounds and healing. Tell us a little bit about that part.
So the first thing that, when I started kind of on this journey really young, like I happened to be like a teenager when I recognized that I experienced a trauma at 13, and I really was very kind of aware. And I'm not quite sure how that happened, right? But I knew that what I do know is I had a lot of faith, and there was always this thought of why, right? And normally I don't like why questions, because I think why questions usually elicit that we did something wrong. Why did you do that? Why is that the way it is, right? There's always like a negative connotation to an answer to a why question. But my why question growing up was really about like, there had to be a purpose for this, because I truly had already had experiences, even as a child, to know that like God existed, something bigger than me existed, right? And so I was very much really trusting and in the curiosity of this had to have happened for a reason and a purpose. And my job, I felt like, was to figure that out. And so my healing journey really was a constant evolution of really doing all the things and tapping inward, right? The more I realized that the answer wasn't out there, it was in me. And really going on this journey, this inner journey into this inner world, right? Which a lot of times when we're not tapping into the inner world, the voice is critical. We get this inner talk is like this negative self-talk, or there's this judgment, or there's this voice of someone else in our world who is judging or telling us how it should be and wagging their finger in our face, right? And that is growing up, right? Growing up, that is kind of, I think, what happens to most of us. And so it really is about, when we tap into that inner world, we can start to kind of untether and kind of comb out all of the parts and pieces that need to be healed. So that way our inner kind of childhood, or our inner child, or our inner, wounded part of us isn't what is dictating our adult life. It's not the part of us running the show. So I think for me, that includes things like, codependency in relationship, enmeshment in my immediate family, feeling like I was an empath, right? And feeling like my job was to fix everyone, always abandoning myself in order to please or make other people comfortable, right? And so it's really like this entire kind of healing process just to get to the point of establishing a healthy way to be and take up space in your world.
Well, it sounds to me like your book is for everyone, because there isn't one single person on this beautiful planet that doesn't have a wound, right? Because we all receive things differently and process it differently. And so what may not have wounded me may wound you. And you might be thinking, well, I was never physically abused. I was never this. I don't have wounds. We all have wounds. We all have our sacred shit.
Yeah.
And until we recognize that and look within, we are never going to go to the next level of where we need to be, right?
Yes, it's so true.
I love it. I just absolutely love everything you're saying, because there's so many people who get stuck in that space. And I'm not calling them victims. It's not even a victimist space. It's a pain space. It's a place of pain. And you don't know how to move on, how to get out. How will you ever get past this?
You hit it. You just hit it, right? Most people stay in the wound. They live in that place of the wound because they were never really taught or allowed to kind of transmute hard emotions. How do you process that? How do you move through that? How do you, kind of work with these feelings and things? How do you communicate that, right? A lot of us really don't, we're so disconnected. So, I feel like nervous system and co-regulation are kind of buzzwords now almost, right? And the idea is that when we've experienced any kind of wound or trauma, right? And that, but just PS, right? Wound or trauma is anything that affects our nervous system. So it doesn't have to be like this huge, big, what they call big T trauma. It could be something that someone would call like a little T trauma. Like maybe your teacher embarrassed you in front of the whole class and said like, who does something like that? And that's a wrong answer, made you feel stupid or silly, right? That could literally be a trauma that keeps you not speaking up like for the rest of your life, right?
Danielle, before you go any further, let's just point out that most children develop their belief blocks, like those blocks, when they're very young. And those little traumas, those little wounds are so small that we don't even recognize it until they grow up and it's now blocking them from something.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And so what happens is that they don't even realize, they know it didn't feel good, right? But we don't talk about what to do with those things when no one is taught, right? Like there's no, when we're not conscious, right? Nobody's talking about that. The kiddo goes home and doesn't tell mom because it's embarrassing, right? So even if mom is a conscious mom and mindful, right? Like she can't even stick up or take care of it or teach him because it's embarrassing and humiliating. And so we just kind of suppress. So the more we suppress these kind of discomforts and these wounds, the more what happens is we disconnect from our bodies. We kind of almost cut. I always think, when I think of that, I think of us cutting off from the neck down, right? And what happens is we go in our heads. We spin in the conscious of those thoughts, I'm so stupid, and why did I do that, and why did I even raise my hand? And we go into sometimes this self-blame. We go into feeling like bad about ourselves. It affects our self-esteem. It affects our confidence. It dictates our then future behaviors, like you're saying, right? Like we now have this block, this belief block, building block, and now we have a belief it's not safe to raise our hand in class. It's not safe to share what we think is the answer. It's not safe to take up space. And we're not consciously thinking this, right? But that is the effect of these kinds of wounds. And so go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was done.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like so fascinated.
I know. So when that happens, it really does. It affects our nervous system because we go into that kind of survival, fight, flight, freeze, right? Like deer in the headlights. Our heart is beating out of our chest. We're either fighting, like we fight back in retaliation and reaction, right? Because we're trying to stick up for ourselves, or we're out. We're like, we don't want to go back to school, like ever. Right? Like, and so this is kind of, what happens. And so there's levels of this that I think everyone can relate to. And it can happen within the home. It can happen at school. It can happen anywhere. And it can happen not just in your childhood, but also in your adult life, right? Like as you grow. And so, right, when we're not processing this, when we're not dealing, when we're not facing, because we don't know, or we don't have the opportunity, it leads to what I think most adults now call it a block, right? I hear so many people say, I feel blocked. There's this thing that happened in my childhood. I'm still dealing with it. I feel like it's keeping me from making money, from being successful, from attracting clients, whatever it is. And it's usually because there's some unresolved stuff in the body system.
So when people do start realizing that, because I do think we protect ourselves, we go into a place of protection instead of processing and understanding and moving past, because it's just safer for us, right? Who doesn't want to feel safe? What are some of the steps when people start recognizing, like, why am I not getting there? Why do I feel like this all the time? Why, when I'm here, this happens? Why? What are some of the things that they can start doing once they recognize, like you have to recognize first that why can't I get to this space? I see it, I visualize, I'm doing all the things, yet I can't get there.
Yeah. So I think that is really key, right? Like awareness is key, because without awareness, we're living in blind spots, right? And if we're living in blind spots, then we know something is going on that we can't see or fix or understand. And then what do? We are kind of stuck, right? But what we do is we have this awareness. And once you have this awareness, really one of the best things you can do is not ask those why questions, and instead start to practice how to be an observer or a witness in what's happening, right? So is when we start to go, oh, wow, I'm supposed to, go to this, dinner, and we're going to talk about, maybe it's a networking event, and talk about what I do or whatever it is, right? And you start to get nervous, right? We can recognize and notice that anxiety or that nervous, or my heart is beating really fast, or I'm sweating, or what, it's like, it really is like, oh, this is really interesting, right? Like taking note and observing, when are you being triggered? And what is happening in your body? What are the sensations? The key is that we are, most of us, unless we're in abusive situations, are safe. We are safe within ourselves. And what happens is we get scared when we feel something that we don't want to feel, right? The nervousness, the anxiety, the fear comes up, the worry, the doubt, the uncertainty, right? We want to pull away from that immediately and suppress, because that's exactly what you said. We are all about coping, right? Our bodies are so wise, and it will adjust and align in a way that will always be to protect us and keep us safe, to cope, right? Those coping skills that we develop. But at some point in our adult lives, those coping skills don't work anymore. And so what happens is when you start using those coping skills, like suppress, but it keeps popping up, we get to go, oh, I am growing. This isn't working anymore. Now it's time to address, right? Like, what is the next step, right? And so instead of blaming and going into that self-blame and trying to figure it out, or why can't I, it's like, wow, this has been coming up a lot for me lately. And knowing that whatever's coming up for you, I don't care what it is ready to be healed.
I love that. I love that. And here's the other thing that I feel like it's super important for people to understand is no one expects you to know what's holding you back. Until you start working through that process, you may not even know. As a coach, I don't know what's holding someone back until we start getting into it, right? We start talking, and I'm listening for those key prompts, right? That they're not hearing because they've said it or thought it so many times that now it's just part of that and they've accepted it. And then as a coach, you kind of start hearing that. And pretty soon you are able to hold that mirror and they're like, wait a minute, what is that you're showing me?
Yes,
because like, I know that.
Yes, exactly. Well, what I love about the coaching industry, right, is that, if you're really good at it, right, we become kind of reflectors, and we really can guide them into these kind of crevices and dark spots and blind spots, and ask really great questions to illuminate what's going on in such a safe way, where I feel like it's so skillful. Like, I think people think like coaching, like everyone's a coach or it's easy. I don't think it is though, right?
No, it's not, because here's the thing. It hurts sometimes. It's painful. You're protecting yourself to let it go. And a good coach just keeps giving you, I call it chunking down. They keep like throwing something else at until they really get to that root of it. And you see it coming across their face. You see it in their body language. You're starting to feel their response to it. And we're getting to it. We're like, and they know like, oh, I'm getting chills just thinking about it, but that's truly what happens.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key, right? Is that there's this, we have this ability to be able to ask the questions in a way that they actually get to do their own work, right? And so it's so powerful to start to illuminate kind of these blind spots, and then really be able to kind of, tease them out, so that way, and create a new way of coping, a new way of being in the world, a new way of moving forward, a new way to take up space that feels safe, that feels secure, that feels like you have this stability and foundation of health, right? And in a way that's like, oh, this is how I want to be in the world. This is how I want to safely move in the world. This is what it feels like to be healed in a world that maybe doesn't always show up like that for us. Right. And I think
I love it. Here's the thing though, like you and I are in pretty good headspaces. It's a journey. It doesn't matter what headspace I'm in. If it's pretty good, if it's not so great today, it's a journey. You'll never get to that space of being in the perfect headspace,
No.
which
Yeah.
thank you, God, right? Because how
Yes.
can you grow? How can you grow unless you start recognizing, moving on past it, taking all that beautiful knowledge with you and
Yeah.
using it for the next thing that comes up. So just remember, it's a journey. Like if you're looking to get to a specific place, you absolutely could get there, but you don't want to end there. Want
Right.
more.
Exactly. That's exactly right. A friend of mine described healing, because you always hear of healing described as like a peeling of the onion,
Mhm.
but she described it as a spiral, right? Because what happens is sometimes we kind of hit up against things and we're like, wait, wasn't I here? Didn't I do this work already? Right?
Been
You're like,
there.
wait a minute. Right? And the truth is that we always are working through, another level of sometimes the same wound, but we're always moving forward and we're always moving towards the center, which is
Right.
us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love that you put it that way, because we do, if just because you go back and you're like deja vu, I've been here before, that
Right.
means you're ready to see more. You're
Yes.
ready to release more, right? And get into an even better place. There is no magic pill. Just because you feel better about a situation doesn't mean you don't have more work to do on that situation. So
100%.
I love that about the wheel. And sometimes you do get that deja vu feeling.
Yes, of course. And I think that's the key, right? Is like we all do. We all do, right? And it's really important to not go into any kind of shame spiral about it, right? Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just be normal? Why can't this just be figured out? I'm kind of feel like the book and how this is like, it's pulling the veil off of the mystery of this idea of what we think it should be. Like, this is it. Right? Like, we're doing it. This is it.
I love it. Show up in your space because you're there, right? You're doing
Right.
it all right. I love too that you talk about it. Why can't I be normal? Because I hear that all the time. I hear like, I want to be normal like them. They're not normal. Nobody is, thank goodness, right? But we always look at other people's lives and we think, I want that for me. But you should want so much more for you because you're so much more worth it. You don't know what's going on behind the beautiful doors of their home or their beautiful face or exterior that they put out there.
Yes.
You are deserving of more, just exactly like you are. So I love that you brought up that normal issue, because there is no such thing as normal. There just isn't.
Yes. And I'm guilty, right? Like, I'll even, like, when I'm like super frustrated, I could be like, that's not normal. That's not a normal whatever, right? And I'm like, wait a second, what's normal? But one of my very young, and I remember being in college. And I was talking to a friend, and I remember saying like something around just being normal, or right, like, I just want to feel normal, because I was still in kind of the thick of my work. And I mean, we're talking over 25 years ago, but what is really interesting is he said to me, like, there is no such thing as normal. Like, and what's so great about normal? Like, what is normal? And it was the first time that it dawned on me that I was striving for some version of what I thought perfection was, out of my anxiety, out of my belief system, out of my, like you said earlier, this victim energy of why is this happening to me? Which we all know, I think when we're in the process of doing the work, it takes a little bit of time to pivot towards everything is happening for me, because then we can transmute that pain into power, that wound into wealth, right? The mess into the message, right? Like, these are such kitschy, cute, like, ways that we talk about in like the social media world, or when we're branding or marketing something. But the truth is that it's a very real thing to go from the pain to alchemize that, to make it into the gold and a stepping stone for what you're meant to do in the world, your soul's purpose, your life purpose, your why.
I think that is so beautiful. I just feel like we've covered so much good stuff. Tell us like a couple of tips that we can use right now to start working on ourselves and recognizing those wounds and doing what we need to do to start moving past them, or starting that circle and not just getting stuck.
Yeah, I think that the first thing, there has to be a way for us to sit with and be able to recognize. So a lot of times the best ways to do that is like journaling, right? I know there's like, I feel like people, probably journaling is always like a great thing to advise someone to do. And people are like, but I journal, right? But like, if you're really journaling out like what is popping up, right? And really what is happening for you, or even brain dumping, you're kind of, that the recorder that you wake up with, recording anything that comes up that feels like it might be a trigger or something feels off, right? Just really recording that and writing it out, just so that way there's a space to put it like as an awareness and a recognition of it. I think one of the other things is to be in stillness with whatever you're feeling, right? So I know that's really hard, right? And so Rhonda Burns in her book, The Greatest Secret, actually calls it welcoming. But what I call it, when I was in my 20s and was doing like therapy, like, every week, my therapist at the time called it inviting these emotions in for tea. Right. So she would say, so if you're feeling shame, if you're feeling, rage, grief, anger, sadness, embarrassment, humiliation, shame, and shame is the feeling of what's wrong with me. Right. When you are with those feelings, our automation is to suppress, get away from it, distract ourselves, binge, eat something, binge shop, just do, all the things that are numbing. Right. And so what we really want to do is one of the things is you want to sit with this hard emotion and imagine you're inviting this emotion in for tea. So you're like, oh, fear, welcome, come in for tea, come and sit at my kitchen table. And you can actually picture it as like something, whatever. And you pour fear tea. And you sit with the fear. And I like to put my hand on my heart and on my belly. And I sit with the fear and I take a breath. And when you do that, what we put attention on grows. So what will happen is you will have kind of this surge of maybe emotion and like maybe panic, maybe anxiety, maybe like, oh my God, right? But you're sitting with it because you're safe, right? You're in your home doing this and you're safe. And you can ask it, do you have a message for me? Like, what is your purpose here? Right. And we kind of make sort of friends with this very difficult emotion, whatever that is. Right. And we feel it. And emotions are like a wave, right? Emotions come in and they peak and then they go back out. Right. And so imagine you're the sand, you're the beach. The beach doesn't stop being a beach because the waves come in and go out. Oh, I just got chills everywhere. It's like, I was like, yeah, nice analogy, Danielle. Right. And so we just like, you just stay, you get to just be in the stillness and stay in there and allow it to come in. And when that wave goes out, right, because it'll peak and then it will go out. You just take a breath and you can open your eyes and you can carry on. Right. And you just do what you need. Like, what do I need? What do I need right now? Do I need to nap? Do I need to eat? Do I need water? Do I need tea? Do I need to walk? Do I need to be in nature? Do I need to write? What do I need? Right. And what happens is those emotions will come back for as long as you need to process them. So if you have a lifetime of suppression of emotion, or you were never taught, right, this might be where you might be like kind of feeling like you're ebbing and flowing in this quite often. But as you do it and as you process it out, you will pivot into a world where those negative feelings are not all that often, right? You're not tapping into them, or you can transmute them very quickly because your belief system changes. Like you said, you're no longer in that base belief system of it's not safe to speak. It's like, oh, right, that's my old fear being triggered. It is safe for me to take up space. I do have a message to share, whatever that is.
I love it. So when you're sitting in that stillness, you're becoming aware of it. You're understanding it. You're processing it. So every time it pops up, you understand it a little bit more and what it's doing there because you're hearing that message.
Right. And so because you get to sit with it and you're acknowledging it, you are not the emotion. We said earlier, we're not sitting in the wound. Right? We are allowing the feelings of it to come up and then we're allowing it to pass. We're in moments of it, but it's not who we are, right? Those emotions are not who we are, right? And so when we're in the healing process, right, it's messy, right? It's holy, it's sacred, but it is shit. Nobody wants to be in that, right? No one wants to be in that shit, but we all are in it. And so it's just a matter of how, when you start practicing it, you can really transmute very quickly, because what happens is it doesn't control you, and it doesn't grab you and make you respond in panic or fear. You go, oh, wait, I know this feeling. I know what happens next. I know what my body is doing that thing. Oh, I'm scared. Okay, let's process this fear out, because I got work to do.
I love it. Danielle, you're amazing. You guys have to run out and get her book. It is going to be a huge success. And she's going to come back with 3 more parts to this series so that you guys can listen to them over and over and over again and learn more about sacred shit and how she's changing the world. Danielle, how can they find you?
So if you're on Facebook, I have this private group called Sacred Feminine Visionaries. You can find me on Instagram at Danielle Marggraf. I'm on Clubhouse at Manifesting Mama, MAMA. My website is actually going to be redone. So I'm almost scared to give you the domain, because I know that's going to be
This
changed.
won't come out till later. So by the time it comes out, it'll probably be ready because your book will be ready.
Exactly. So I'll wait I think the domain might.
We'll put it in the links.
We'll put it in the link.
We'll be good. We'll put it in the links. Thank you so much, Danielle. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Oh My Health, There Is Hope podcast. Make sure to visit Jana's website, bestholisticlife.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play, or listen there, so you'll never miss an episode. While you're at it, if you found value in the show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that'll help too. Let's change the world together, one health expert at a time. Looking forward to seeing you next time.